So this is one reason why metabolic health issues show up on our face before they even show up as a diagnosis, before they're even evident in your blood work. If you feel like you're aging more quickly, next time you have an appointment to get lab work done, ask them to throw on fasting insulin as one of the markers that you want to have checked. And this is why two women the same age can look dramatically different. Hey, welcome back to the Pretty Well podcast. I'm Lisa Smith. Today, we're talking about something that I get asked about all the time, and that is why some women age faster than others, and how to tell if it's actually happening to you. Most women think aging shows up first and foremost in their skin and hair. So fine lines, wrinkles, sagging skin, graying hair, and thinning hair. But aging starts much earlier than that. Long before you notice anything happening in the mirror or even lab results with your doctor, something's going on under the surface. And one of the things that we're learning more and more about is that aging starts under the radar. It starts with your mitochondria and it starts with your metabolism. And today what I'm talking about is how a woman can feel and look completely healthy. And then all of a sudden, it seems like right out of the blue, she starts experiencing fatigue, brain fog, stubborn weight gain, especially belly fat, inflammation, and the feeling that they're aging overnight. I've had so many clients, women in their 40s and 50s, who eat healthily, they exercise regularly, they're mindful about how much sleep they get and about how much stress is coming in their lives and how they're dealing with that from a mindset standpoint. And yet they notice that their energy isn't as much as it used to be, and that brain fog hits, and that they're starting to wake up in the middle of the night, often around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And they're starting to notice more belly fat around their middle. And then mid-afternoon, how they'll deal with some brain fog and some energy crashes. And she'll go to her doctor, and her doctor will say, your labs are normal. These are just normal symptoms of aging. But she knows that she feels very different than she felt 5 years ago, and that this isn't normal for her, and that something is off. And that's where this game of chasing the answer begins. And it's an incredibly frustrating game because the more you look for what's wrong and you don't find something wrong, it's not like you want to find something wrong, but on the other hand, you want an explanation for why you feel like you're in somebody else's body and it looks like you're in somebody else's body and you think like you're in somebody else's mind. You just don't have the mental clarity. This is where it becomes really helpful to know what's happening under the surface. And what we're specifically going to be talking about today is how metabolic inflexibility starts way before anything is noticed on the outside. And that is driving a lot of these aging changes that seem to happen all at once. Let's talk about metabolism. And specifically when we talk about metabolic health, we're really talking about things like blood sugar balance, insulin resistance, prediabetes, cardiovascular health. When glucose enters your bloodstream because you've eaten something and now it's breaking down into glucose, then our body is smart enough to release insulin. The problem isn't necessarily the glucose. It's the repeated spikes and dips and spikes and crashes that are happening over years. And this glucose insulin roller coaster effect, where it goes up and down over years, leads to your cells becoming less responsive to the insulin when your body releases it. And that's where the word insulin resistance comes from. So you eat something, it's broken down into glucose, your pancreas says, oh, I have to release insulin, that lets the glucose into the cells, out of the bloodstream. It's this beautiful system that works really well. But after all those spikes and crashes, the body becomes less receptive to the insulin in the cell receptor, which opens up, lets the glucose come in. And what happens is the body has to release more and more insulin. So the insulin is rising to get the effect of getting the glucose into the cells and out of your bloodstream. As that happens, we start to see some things just slowly, ever so slowly changing. We start to see inflammation coming up. We start to see weight gain around the middle. And One telltale, I had one client say to me, in the past few days, I gained 4 pounds. That's a telltale sign that there are some changes in the body's receptivity to insulin and the ability to get the glucose out of the bloodstream. So when that happens, fat storage becomes easier. Again, the body's holding more water weight, more inflammation, and our energy production becomes less efficient. Now, to go back to that one client, she didn't gain 4 pounds in a few days. Your body just doesn't do that. She even said, I had a little bit of cake. Could that have done it? And I said, no. What happened was your body, that is inflammation. And that is water weight that your body's holding on to. And that is when you have those dramatic spikes and shifts in your weight, think inflammation right away. Something's driving that inflammation response up. When these things are happening behind the scenes, that's when a woman can wake up one morning and say, oh my gosh, I feel like I've aged overnight. I feel like I've put on all this weight. I feel like my skin has just literally changed overnight. And I just don't, and I'm more tired. I look tired. I feel tired. And it really didn't happen overnight. What happened was it was building very quietly, very slowly until it hit a threshold. And then when it hit a threshold, it seems like Pandora's box just burst open, and all of a sudden you've aged 5 years in a weekend. And here's what I wish more women understood. Blood sugar gets all the attention. We hear it all the time. Oh, my fasting blood glucose, my HbA1c, all very important. But nobody's talking about insulin. Insulin is often the real story. Insulin is a storage hormone. Every time you eat something, especially carbohydrates, breaks down to glucose, that insulin comes in and it helps your body to store that glucose into your cells. And that's the end of it. That's normal. That's how it's supposed to work. But the problem is when those cells become less responsive and we start to see some insulin resistance and the body has to produce more and more of this insulin, there are effects that are coming downstream from that. And here's where it gets really interesting. We don't know that our insulin is elevating. There are no signs. It's silent. And doctors, they rarely check for fasting insulin in your blood work. You'll get your fasting blood sugar all day long. You'll get your HbA1c for sure. But fasting insulin is not normally checked. And here's where it gets tricky. Since no one's looking at the insulin rising, as it rises, it continues to keep the glucose under control. So as your glucose is getting checked year after year and your HbA1c is getting checked, they look normal. You can't see what's happening if you're not looking at the insulin. So you can look at it this way. Your body's working harder and harder and harder to maintain balance in blood sugar. And as it's working, no one sees the effort it's ramping up. All they see is the blood sugar's fine. Everything's fine. But the amount of insulin required to keep everything fine keeps going up and up. And this can happen for years and even decades before blood sugar starts to rise, before the system starts to break down. And we see there's a real problem. And because it's silent, you won't feel any different, you won't look any different, then what's happening is elevated insulin levels are hiding in plain sight. And what that elevated insulin is doing is it's affecting everything, from how you look to how you feel, how you think, and how you age. What this starts to look like after it's been going on for some time is, as I've mentioned, more belly fat being deposited around the middle, increased cravings, especially for sweets and carbohydrates, afternoon energy crashes, waking up in the middle of the night hungry, brain fog and problems with focus, difficulty losing weight, increased inflammation, and even feeling hungry soon after meals. What I've found is that lots of women blame themselves. They think, I know I haven't changed how I'm eating and I haven't changed my exercise, but maybe I need to do more. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I don't have enough willpower. Maybe I need a stricter diet. But the problem isn't that. It's not motivation and it's not lack of drive. It's that your metabolism is becoming less flexible. It's becoming more fragile. So instead of easily switching between burning carbohydrates that you're getting from food and then burning to stored fat, it begins to become more and more dependent on burning fuel that you're getting from food. You've noticed your hunger goes up. That's why you might feel the need to snack more often, because you're starting to get that shaky, hangry feeling. Skipping meals feels absolutely impossible. You feel awful. Cravings become more intense. Energy starts to drop off. And this is where the aging piece comes in. So not only are you having this metabolic inflexibility, you're getting low blood sugar symptoms, you're getting hangry, your energy's dropping, but this is where the aging connection comes in. Insulin doesn't just affect your weight and your ability to maintain your sugar levels, it also dramatically affects the aging process. Chronically elevated insulin is tied directly to chronic inflammation, greater oxidative stress, reduced metabolic flexibility, and accelerated biological aging. Higher insulin levels are also related to the development of something called AGEs, which is an acronym for Advanced Glycation End Products. And what a perfect acronym, because they form when excess sugar in your bloodstream attaches to proteins in your body, like collagen. And collagen is what keeps your skin resilient and youthful and firm. But when our collagen gets damaged because it has sugar molecules attached to it, it becomes rigid and stiff and sticky, and it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And that's when we start to see our skin breaking down much more rapidly. It's often related to these AGEs, these advanced glycation end products. Again, too much sugar in the bloodstream. Now the insulin mechanism is slowing down. It's producing more insulin, but it's not working as well. So now the blood sugar is starting to rise and it's attaching to proteins in our body. And now it's causing rapid aging. So this is one reason why metabolic health issues show up on our face before they even show up as a diagnosis, before they're even evident in your blood work. If you feel like you're aging more quickly, this is something to look into. Next time you have an appointment to get lab work done, ask them to throw on fasting insulin as one of the markers that you want to have checked. And this is why two women the same age can look dramatically different. It often has to do with this metabolic piece that's happening under the hood. The difference isn't just genetics, it's epigenetics. It's what's happening at the cellular level. This becomes really frustrating when a woman goes to her doctor and says, I'm just aging so much faster in every way. And they're told, you look completely normal. Everything looks good. You're healthy. This is just the way we age. You don't have to buy that. That's not true. If you don't feel like yourself, there's a reason for that. There's something going on. And when it comes to something like this, you can deal with it. You can make changes that will improve those insulin levels and will improve your responsiveness metabolically, your metabolic flexibility. There is so much you can do simply from diet and exercise. Then if we even add supplements on top of that, it's amazing what your body will do when you give it the right raw materials and know how to start to work with this to begin to shift the body back into a better state and able to get your metabolic health back on track. It is entirely doable. So insulin resistance doesn't start when blood sugar begins to rise or when HbA1c begins to rise. It starts years earlier when the body starts working harder to balance those levels. And let's be clear about this. Blood sugar instability doesn't look like eating cookies and cake all day or every day. It can look like a completely healthy breakfast, like coffee with yogurt and granola and oatmeal, maybe a smoothie, whole grain toast, all foods that you would consider to be healthy. Yet for many of us, those foods cause a glucose spike first thing in the morning, which leads to elevated insulin, which will rapidly begin to bring the glucose down, and you end up with an energy crash by 10:30 in the morning and you're shaking and you need a candy bar or you need another cup of coffee or a latte or something else to help you feel balanced again. And then it happens all over again in the afternoon. with another spike, another crash, and then brain fog, cravings, massive fatigue around 3 p.m., more caffeine, and then it goes back into the cycle again. You've heard over and over again, you need to make sure your blood sugar is balanced. You need to make sure your HbA1c is less than 5.5. Not that it's wrong, but if your insulin is secretly rising and you don't know it, that advice is about as helpful as a fart in church. I mean, really. Like, my blood glucose is fine, my A1C is fine. Meanwhile, something's going on. Could be something that you have no idea about. That is a simple preventative check. So here's something I'm going to give you that you can start tomorrow morning. For 1 week, I want you to do a 7-day experiment, and that is a blood sugar stability so that we're not getting insulin spikes in the morning challenge. You're going to eat protein first thing every morning of the week, at least 25 to 35 grams every single morning. And when you do that, I want you to start on a specific day, give it a full week. And here's what I want you to observe: how your cravings, your energy, and your focus are in the morning. And then I also want to see how your cravings, energy, and focus are in the afternoon. And then in the evening after dinner, when you're normally craving something sweet after dinner, I want you to observe that too. Because what I've found is when people get the right amount of protein and not simple carbohydrates in the morning. So I'm not talking overnight oats with protein powder, because that will still spike your blood sugar. I'm talking very specific protein-rich breakfasts that are low or no simple carbohydrates. First thing in the morning, then I want you to observe how you're feeling mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and after dinner. Because what I've found is that when people stabilize their blood sugar first thing in the morning out of the gate, that their cravings go away. Literally, even their nighttime cravings. There's nothing else you need to change. No diet overhaul, no calorie counting, no macro counting, no fasting, no extra exercises, no new supplements. Just do that for 1 week consistently. And keep a journal. I got a great one if you want it. It's free. It's linked in the show notes. The Morning Mindset Journal. Great place for you to notice what you're changing. I want you to ask yourself what has changed and keep note of it. Better yet, send me a message and let me know what you see changing. I would love that. I'm going to put money on the fact that you're going to have higher energy, fewer cravings, possibly some water weight loss because of the inflammation reduction. I'm guessing your focus is going to improve. Your sleep may improve, and those mid-afternoon energy crashes and complete brain fog will go away. So if you've been feeling like you're aging extra fast recently or even in the past few years, please don't assume that you're stuck with this and that these are just the signs of getting older. Don't buy that narrative. You don't have to. It's not true. It can be true. If you keep doing what you've done, you'll keep getting what you got. But let's just start with this one small change this week, because sometimes the signs of aging are actually signals from your body that it's struggling. It's struggling to maintain balance. It's struggling to keep up. And often the earliest clues you'll get before you see anything on your blood work is that your energy will shift, your focus will shift, your inflammation and your weight will shift long before you see it on a lab result. I want to leave you with this, that aging may be inevitable, but accelerated aging and the miserable symptoms that come along with it, those are optional. Thank you for joining me today. If you want some great protein breakfast recipes, write breakfast in the comments and I will reach out to you. I love it when you're here. I'll be back next week. Until then, stay pretty well. Bye.